So now we're going back to the United States, and this time we're going to go over to Utah and talking to Christy. Hi, Christy. How may we help you today?
Hi, I'm surprised I got through. Thank you for taking my call. I am just struggling with trying to figure out if I should try to put a core. I'm not really sure how the cores and stops work specifically, but I'm in a position where my husband's decided to just live with me and raise our children together, but not have any emotional connection. He's just shut me completely out and has decided that that's okay. He's okay with living that way. I did have an affair back in 2016. Since then, it was a 5-month one. And when it came out, I wanted to work things out, and I ever since have been trying really hard to reconnect and show remorse and earn his forgiveness. Right at the very start, he was willing to work with me. He did work with me for about a year in trying to reconcile and work through things, but he felt since then he has decided that he's not going to, and I don't really know why, but it feels like the more time's gone on, the less he trusts me and the more he distances himself from me. And it's frustrating because I feel like I have been working on the pies and I've been doing everything possible to show him, and I've done all that. I don't tell him. I try to show him my changes, and I've made a ton of changes, and I feel like even now we were even intimate up to about 5 months ago, and then he took that away too. And so we're in a position now.
Did anything else happen about 5 months ago? Anything at all happened 5 or 6 months ago?
So no, I not that I can see. All I've seen from him is just, I feel like he's just gotten more and more angry and maybe more bitter towards the situation. And I know he's triggered a lot by things that he feels. But even my kids notice it. He's really hard to be around. He's very negative. And he makes snarky comments a lot.
As far as you know, is there anybody in his world that's feeding that?
I don't think so, but
okay.
There may be somebody in his work. There's a person he talks to at work a lot that has, I don't know if it's a similar situation, but he's divorced, and his wife has the same thing, cheated on him, but she's left him for many different reasons. Anyway, so I know they talk a lot, and I do know he read a book about being a chump and feeling like he's.
So are you going to continue to live like this? Are you going to continue to live in the same house with him?
I don't want to. I feel like I'm doing that so that my kids can be okay. I have 4 kids, and 2 of them are gone now. They've just moved out to college, but my girls are still here. And
and I appreciate that.
I'm in a place where I can't do this much longer. I just feel like every time I've tried to talk to him, he will shut me out. He'll say, well, I'm not, let's talk about it later, or I don't.
And is it affecting you physically or intellectually or emotionally, spiritually? Is it affecting you? Like, is your immune system still working well? Or are you beginning to get sick a lot? Or are you finding yourself depressed or anything like that?
I'm a pretty strong person.
All right, so physically.
But
is it affecting you intellectually
way,
or emotionally? Is it affecting you in those 2 ways?
Emotionally, yes.
Okay.
Emotionally, yes. I struggle.
Okay. So are you finding yourself dealing with anxiety? Are you potentially finding yourself depressed? Those kinds of things?
I feel anxious all the time.
Okay.
I try to do things to help with that aren't to do with him.
I understand. Well, the reason I'm asking you those questions is this. Obviously, you have to make your decision about what you do with your life. I mean, that's your decision, certainly not ours. But sometimes when people say, okay, if I'm going to have to put my foot down about something, when do I do it? Well, one of the criteria we suggest people thinking about is if it's affecting you or your children negatively in physical ways, intellectual ways, emotional ways, or spiritual ways, where that is becoming detrimental, not just the fact that it hurts, but it's becoming detrimental, then it may well be a time you have to make a decision. Now, there's a thing we talk about called cores, which is continuing our relationship essentials. If he doesn't really care about continuing the relationship, then a core is not really going to work. Then there's a thing we call a stop, and a stop says safeguards that offer protection. And now the safeguards can offer you protection emotionally, just like they can offer protection physically or spiritually or any other way. If you were to do something like that, other people would typically call those boundaries. You'd have to think very carefully through, well, what is it that I want him to stop? Because what I'm hearing is what you really want him to do is to start doing something. You want him to start communicating with you. Or I guess you did get one stop, the fact that he's being negative and being snarky. You can actually set a stop about that. But understand that you can't make him forgive you. You can't make him be what you want him to be. The only person that you can control is you. And while I appreciate a great deal the fact that you're caring about your children, I think that's an awesome, wonderful, good for you, kudos in every sense of the word. If it's affecting you in such a way that it's going to wind up affecting the kids, or if it's already affecting the kids, sometimes you have to make a decision like, I can't live like this. Now, before you set a core or a stop, we'd recommend that you ask for a conversation. Like, we need to have a deep conversation. We need to sit down and talk. And in those things, you can start saying, I realize what I did was wrong, but I don't know what else I can do to make up for that. Don't keep beating yourself up about that, because if you do, you'll keep him feeling those negative emotions. So you don't keep beating yourself up about that. You don't keep telling him how sorry you are, or you'll continue to feed those negative emotions. If you have clearly made it known to him, I am very sorry. I really wish I hadn't done it. I've tried to atone. If you've already done that, then stop doing that, because you're feeding that negativism. And if you can look at it then and say, what I need from you is this, for the sake of our children, the sake of us, will you forgive me? Can we move this on? Now, I'm not making you forgive me because I know I can't. By the way, is by any chance your husband a religious man?
No, in fact, he left that about 5 years ago, and is atheist now.
Okay. Well, even atheists need to understand the concept of forgiving. That, he can hang on to this, and it can continue to damage him and damage you and damage the kids, or he can decide to forgive. Kimberly, what would you add to what I've said so far?
I second it. I mean, yes, when she first started talking and said it happened in 2016, and that she didn't say it exactly this way. You didn't say it this way, Christy, but basically you've been spending 3 years trying to show him that you are sorry and to do something to get him to forgive and be able to move past it. And you can't stay there. You can't live there. I mean, you need to be able to forgive yourself and move on. And if you feel stuck in that, then of course that's a terrible, hard and terrible place to be. So I agree completely with Joe. Starting with the conversation is the best way to do it, because we want to start with the least effect. What am I trying to say? The minimum effective dose. That's what I'm trying to say. So start there. But if not, then you might have to have those harder decisions coming up of, well, what is that stop? And then what is the consequence of the stop? And that's its whole own conversation to be a part of. But I think that mentally you're on the right track, and you sound like a strong person. You've endured a lot. And so I think you can do this too. It's just going to take some making sure you do it the right way.
Yeah. And our hearts are with you. I hope that you can make that happen.